is now Sunday, March 9th, which means that we are coming in on the first week of The Artist's Way finishing up. This is my second time attempting The Artist's Way, and the first time that I did it, I wasn't really trying to complete the whole program. I figured that I would glean what wisdom I needed each week just by, reading through it. I somewhat did morning pages, I somewhat did the artist date, but I am trying to take it a step up by actually doing the full ass thing this time. I even wrote the contract. I wrote saying, I, Cadence Baker, understand that I am undertaking an intensive guided encounter with my own creativity. I commit myself to the 12-week duration of the course. I, Cadence Baker, commit to weekly reading, daily morning pages, a weekly artist date, and the fulfillment of each week's tasks. I, Cadence Baker, further understand that this course will raise issues and emotions for me to deal with. I, Cadence Baker, commit myself to excellent self-care, adequate sleep, diet, exercise, and pampering for the duration of the course. And then I signed my name, and then I wrote my name, and then I put the date. And that was 1 week ago, and now we're doing it. Importantly to all of this has been that I've been doing my Artist's Way activities in not a normal notebook. I feel like I need something more grandiose. I need to be able to see all my ideas in one space, which is why I got the schizo pad. I've been writing on these giant canvas-like pages in Sharpie, and I have been running through Sharpies very quickly in doing it. I've probably filled like 25 pages or so far. I got it the other day. Most of those pages I did in one go when I used up the first Sharpie. I'm finding it very helpful for the way that my brain works, in a way that keeping like a neat, tidy notebook doesn't always. And I've also got my neat, tidy notebook, which I would feel bad desecrating because it's purple with gold edges, and it's papyrus, and it's quite nice. There's some kind of schizo shit going on in there too, but a little bit more concealed and held together. Like if I were to die, then probably the first thing they would publish was one of the notebooks that looked a little more like this, and then like the bonus round would probably be the schizo pad. I also have been completing my morning pages in my notes app, which I don't know how I feel about yet, but it is making me a lot more consistent with them. The other function of doing my morning pages in my notes app is that it's stopping me from going on Instagram first thing in the morning, which has been the current habit. Ideally, I wouldn't be looking at my screen at all first thing in the morning, but I'm trying to transition from how bad my brain is first thing in the morning, looking at Instagram, looking at, like notifications from the damn meme account, versus going into my notes app and spilling everything that is immediately on my mind the second I wake up. It is seeming to reduce my morning anxiety a little bit. Usually I will wake up much later than I meant to, and I will be immediately ashamed of the fact that I've woken up so late. And then I will remember all of the things that are going on in my life, which will quickly, send me into a cortisol spiral. So the second that starts happening, now I've been opening the notes app and been doing my morning pages, and it's been 3 screens worth, which is my version of the 3 pages. But it allows me to get it out fast and in great volumes, and I've been finding it very helpful. It's spring forward. It is bright and sunny and beautiful outside, and so I was going to take my roommate's copy, with her permission. I was going to take her copy of The Dharma Bums by Jack Kerouac and start digging in. One of the stores near me just started doing like matcha Americano and a little like 1-in-1, like a espresso and sparkling water, but they're doing it with matcha. They have like a sparkling grapefruit tonic one. I would like to try to couple my morning pages with making coffee or matcha in the morning. I like the idea of habit stacking. It seems to work a lot better for me. If I start doing one thing, I can start doing, 10. For whatever reason, it seems like I need to overshoot a lot. Okay, so anyway, into some of the reading and then some of the activities that I did this week. I first got The Artist's Way in December of 2023 for Christmas. It had been introduced to me before many, many years ago. I was 13. I was sitting in the airport in Seattle, and I was just depressed out of my mind, as 13-year-olds often are, and I think that it was probably, emanating from me that I was going through something, and I was, sitting, scribbling away, and this older man was like a couple seats away from me, and asked me something about my writing, and told me that he had been writing for like the last 50 years or something, and that writing had helped him get through so much throughout his life, and that if I were to keep utilizing that tool as I was now, that it would get me far. Now at that point, I feel like I already knew that I wanted to be a writer in some capacity, and so it felt just like a divine encouragement from the universe that I was doing the right thing, especially because I was at such a fraught emotional time where I didn't really know how to orient myself. The other thing that he did is he recommended me The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, and I wrote it down in my notebook. Then, many years later, received it for Christmas from my mom's boyfriend. Even then, only taking like the very small things away from it that I did still helped me a lot. I think that I wanted to start doing The Artist's Way again, probably because I saw the doechii videos, and I watched them pretty religiously in the last 2 weeks. It reminded me that I have this same tool that she used to propel herself towards opening creatively. It was very interesting to see her go through each week and all of the emotions of each week so candidly, and I felt like I was watching the opening process in real time, the entering the creative state. It was very interesting to hear her talk about so many insecurities that I also deal with in my artistry. I was especially really interested in, there's this part she talks about if she's really afraid of failure or success. She was like, I am scared of finding success and then having my music treated like garbage and having my art treated like garbage. In the original context of the video, I think she's using garbage to mean like cheapening it and making it more accessible, and then therefore reducing the quality, or reducing the quality of the criticism that it receives. That is a really common thing that will happen with artists that have spent years coming up. A lot of the criticism lobbied towards them for a while is pretty constructive and generally a reflection of it's okay, you need to get better at this one thing, you need to improve your production or your voice or whatever. And then once it hits the mainstream, once you're good, once you achieve your success, then it enters this whole new audience who don't actually give a fuck about you, who weren't, criticizing you from a point of trying to get you to improve, and who just don't fucking get it. And that is so crazy hearing doechii talk about it specifically, because she just got so big. I guess I've only been really intently listening to doechii since the beginning of this school year. But I remember when she dropped Yucky Blucky Fruitcake in 2021 or whatever, and she had a very small amount of TikTok success. She was still considered an underground artist there. Now the criticism she's getting is why the fuck is your face tape visible? That's ugly. Actually, she kind of sounds like Nicki Minaj, because they don't know any other fucking female rappers. This group of people who just don't fucking get it. And I have seen that happen to so many artists that I like. And so I thought that was really, really interesting that she kind of predicted. I don't know if she feels this way, that this has happened to her, but it's just my perception. It was very interesting hearing that The Artist's Way opened her up to that possibility, and honestly maybe helped her prepare for it more. I don't see her trying to go on these crazy Twitter rants to defend her creative process. I think that she had a come up that was slow enough and slow paced enough that she was able to get some security in herself as an artist before having to enter this mainstream audience that doesn't understand the face tape or her flow or whatever. It's ridiculous. As I have been completing this program, the issues anticipated were coming up for me, but even now it seems unrelated, and I can only realize that okay, things are coming from this well inside me because I'm committing myself to this creative program. And I do believe that the opening of myself creatively is going to be very spiritual and likely very painful. And trying to gear up to enter that creative artist state where you are so in tune with yourself, and in tune with the higher power that Julia talks about, referenced as God, but interchangeable throughout. In order to channel that higher power, I'm gonna have to get a lot of shit out of my system. I can tell that it's related. I can tell that if shit's getting out of my system, it's probably part of the artist's way. Some of those changes too started right before deciding to undergo the artist's way. In my schizo pad, I did this massive undertaking of all of my shame. I wrote down all the things that I feel shame about on a daily basis. I didn't get super deep. It was stuff that I knew that I was ashamed of that, ultimately is all pretty trivial. I said that I'm ashamed of how late I wake up every day. I felt shame in talking about myself a lot, and the ever-present worry that I'm coming across self-involved or narcissistic. And, I said I was ashamed of the fact that I'm on my phone all the time, but that I am paralyzed in a way that I cannot send texts or answer calls. It's a really bad time for me to not be able to answer any texts or calls too, because it's coming into a lot of creative ambitions on my plate, and a lot of people are trying to contact me about them. This week's problems that also kind of are part of what I'm dealing with the opening and the emotional turmoil. Number one, I've been planning this show for a month. I didn't realize that where I'm planning it and when is during a time with triple fines, noise fines. And so the house that was supposed to host it just pulled out. So I have less than a week to figure it out. I have 5 days to figure it out. It is a highly anticipated event by many people, and I hyped it up a lot, did this a month in advance so that hypothetically something like this wouldn't happen, or I would have enough time to cover it. I'm just angry at how, the last several shows that I've tried to organize have all faltered, mostly because of the threat of getting a noise complaint. I am really frustrated about living in a college town, where that is the norm. Even I went to a show last night that was so fucking good and not that loud at all, and still, got shut down at 9 p.m., 9:30 p.m. No, it's happening in the other town that I'm organizing this show in too. It's just if you don't have an official venue these days, you're absolutely fucked. They have cracked down so much harder than I was ever imagining. And that makes me despair, because organizing events is the main way I know how to foster community, which is what I'm talking about all the time. And what I want to be able to do, and how I feel like I'm making an impact in the world. And so when that is continuously threatened by the law, it goes beyond pissing me off. It sends me into existential despair of just the fact that, it seems like such a trivial thing to be yeah, we have old head neighbors who don't want us to have fun or whatever, but it also is this has the potential to kill live music, which I think is the most important thing happening in these college towns, and the most important thing coming out of it. And obviously I have such a stake in it as an artist. Right now I am waiting on a call back from one of my former places of employment, a donut shop, to ask if we can throw that shit on the if we can throw that shit on the donut shop dance floor. And I'm hoping and praying they say yes. Even with all of that said, I'm gonna pray right now that the perfect solution will arise. If I get a million rejections but that one place shows up, then we will be good. Problem number two is that this is part of, I think, the synchronicities that Julia was talking about suddenly becoming very apparent as you undertake the artist's way. My roommate and I are going through similar things at the same time. I don't think she knows that we're going through similar things, because I have kept mine secret, because the thing she's going through is a 10 times more intense and horrifying version of the thing I'm going through. I've been witnessing her go through this thing, this interpersonal problem, and it's reminding me of one that I've been going through. I have purposely suppressed a lot of the anger that I feel about it because I don't want to rage against somebody that I care about. But that's made it so that I just am not raging at all. I told my roommates I was gonna give up tweaking for Lent, and then I realized that I actually need to tweak much harder, I think. I think I need to tweak harder than ever previously imaginable in order to free myself. So I tweaked hard. I didn't scream, which I maybe I will, hold on. It does feel pretty good. But I did get a lot of lipstick on my pillow. I feel like I need to be tweaking harder. Because then there will be, oh man, I messed up my lipstick. Yeah, I need to tweak harder. And I think that Julia would support that. Because I can't have an authentic sense of safety if I'm suppressing a lot of the things that I feel unsafe about. And, you know, I can feel that feeling has been stored in my body, and it shows up when I'm anxious about my relationships, and it definitely shows up when I'm anxious about my art. You know, I have these creative impulses that will be stifled almost immediately by anxious impulses, which Julia talks about and calls the censor. This is one of the main things I remember from when I was first doing the morning pages, is that in the first chapter she talks about, like, notice everything that your censor says and, you know, write it down. It was just so illuminating immediately that I had been censoring myself from even in my writing to myself, because there was stuff that I thought was too embarrassing, too self-absorbed. Like, the action of writing about yourself isn't inherently self-absorbed, and not in a negative way. But I figured that I had to be making sure that everybody knew that I didn't actually care all that much about myself and my inner workings, everybody being my audience of myself, in my own notebook where I was writing about myself. If I thought that I was giving myself too much credit, or that I was hyping myself up too much, that would make me censor myself. And then if I was saying anything self-effacing or kind of negative about myself, I would immediately think that that was like an action countering my narcissism, basically. Like, I figured that I was doing it performatively, again, to myself in my own diary. I noticed that my censor would stop me from saying anything embarrassing. I didn't want to write down the word labia in my own diary. And that really just goes against everything that I stand for, you know. I've always hated weird terms for vagina that aren't vagina. I can tell that there are things that, like, even within myself, I don't want to address. And so Julia telling us to analyze the censor was really cool and helpful then and helpful now. I wonder how many of my desires I've also shrunk in anticipation to my censor. And how many times I've tried to convince myself that I don't actually want something because the censoring part of myself tells me that I can't achieve it, or that to want it says something bad about me. I think a lot of people do that, but I don't want to do it anymore. I would like to think that none of my desires are beyond my grasp. You know, at least by principle. I don't know if I'll achieve every single thing that I ever want to achieve, but why would I think preemptively that I can't before I've even tried? I don't want to argue for my limitations. I don't want to argue for my limitations. I had to say that again because I keep hiccuping because I fucked my throat up so bad by screaming. So I did some of the prompts. As you can see, again, this was like 3 or 4 of them. One of them was, it was like, if you had 10 other lives to lead. I think she actually said 5, but I chose 10. If you had 10 other lives to lead, what would you do with them? And so, you know, the first one I said full-time touring musician. I don't know what I necessarily mean by full-time. I don't think I mean like celebrity full-time, as in like this is your entire livelihood and your, you know, all your finances depend on this, and you know, you can't hang out with your friends and live a normal life. I don't think that that is really my dream of being a full-time musician. But the idea that I wouldn't have to be constantly fighting to make sure that my music was a priority against whatever else I have to do for work is very appealing to me. I would like to have one of those lives be I am immersed in music, like I can't get away from it in a way that would be harmful to me. Number 2, I said coffee or tea shop owner. I would absolutely love to do that, and I've worked in a lot of coffee shops, and I've been a tea tender before. Number 3, I said I would like to work somehow in GIS. I love maps. Everybody who knows me knows I love maps. You can see the map of the LA and San Diego and Central Coast metropolitan areas. On the other side is the map of the Bay metropolitan area and the greater NorCal region. I used to have this in my dash in my glove box, and I got lost in the valley in the middle of the night one time, and my phone died, and I busted that analog ass map out and found my way home in the dark. I would really like to be in a profession, or maybe at least a hobby, that allows me to do shit like that all the time, because I had a lot of fun. Number 4, recording studio owner or mentor. I also said that I would like to be a dancer, running some sort of nonprofit third space type deal. That is left intentionally vaguely because I already said that I would like to be a coffee and tea shop owner. I mean, ideally I would love to run something like a nonprofit coffee shop, similar to the one that I worked at in San Luis Obispo, Front Porch. But it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, a coffee shop environment. I just like that because it encapsulated a lot of the other things I would like to have in this intentional, like, third space type community resource. It's a library, and they do meals, they do live music and shows, they do like art fairs and craft sales and whatnot. They have like a pool table. You know, you can go there and study, whatever. So I would like to create and run a space. Something like that. I said I would like to be an oil painter, a writer and an essayist. I guess I already am, but a full-time maybe in one life. A nomadic traveler with no profession whatsoever. There's a lot in the world I would like to see and feel untethered by a career. And then a filmmaker on the 10th life. Then I did all of the time travel activities. I wrote down the past enemies of my creative self-worth, who I will not read to you at this time. But I realized there actually weren't that many. I have received some measure of support from most of the people who have listened to my music or heard that I make music. I think there's some people who haven't liked it, but such is the way. Like, there were instances I used to judge myself. Like, I took somebody else's vague judgment and I kind of projected a much greater thing onto it. You know, whereas maybe that person was just not a fan of my music, or conversely, they were insecure or upset about something or pissed off at me, and I read that into like a critique of my artistry and not like someone was pissed off at me. You know, I have mostly myself written on this list, and I think I've used my own judgments under the guise of being somebody else's judgment to justify why my music sucks ass and I should not pursue it. But then there's also a section of this time travel bit that is past champions of my creative self-worth, and I will read this. Oh, well, I can say like one person on my past enemies of my creative self-worth is just my dad wants me to get a real job. But I did also say on my past champions of my creative self-worth that both my mom and my dad have still really loved my music and been very supportive of it. I think that it has been less of a value judgment on their part, discouraging me from making music. They think my music's good. They just think that I'm also like gonna starve to death. And I can't be that upset at a parent worrying about that. I said my friend Goldie for supporting me since I was 13 and I was first, starting to make music. I said my friend Ryan for always believing me and offering shared feedback, exerting effort and passion into my music and valuing it so much. That's the person that I record with and who mixes my music a lot of the time in my production. I said my friend Ashton for calling me a true artist and being inspired by me. Friends like, and then I listed off quite a few. Tiffany, Eliza, Rowan, Lakin, Louise, Claire, Ethan, Sula, Idvika, Colleen, and Sophie for streaming the fuck out of my music and really paying attention to detail. A lot of people that I don't know very well, who otherwise have no reason to lie to me about how much they like my music. You know, they are going out of their way to tell me that they like it, and they tell me what they like about it. You know, my I guess my friend. I think maybe we can just call everybody who we're friendly with our friends. My friend Brennan told me that he liked the D&B influence on one of my songs randomly, and I was like, I had no idea you were listening to my music. Like, that was just the most recent one, but it really has been a very encouraging thing to hear so much from so many random people. It just feels very authentic to me, and maybe the people who aren't quite as close to me but who still are showing me support. I also said maybe my first true fans. I had this group of people randomly like tell me over Instagram or something. They had seen like a poster of my music. This guy was like, oh, I love your music. I was like, thank you so much. I've gotten that response a couple times from posters that I've put up or whatever. And then a couple days later, he was like, yo, I really like your music, like a lot. And he was like, can me and my friends meet you? I was like, oh my God, like, okay, sure. So we went and got coffee on campus, and I was like, am I on fucking Walk the Prank right now? Like, it felt like unreal. And I thought I was getting set up or something, but they were dead ass. They really loved my music. We talked a lot about the creative process. They just asked me a bunch of questions about like the philosophy behind art in general and the creative process. And that it was just a really great conversation. I left that feeling like, wow, I am so like lucky to be able to not only like meet the people who like my music in such an intimate context, and they're not just like a random number on a screen, but to hear exactly what they like about it and to have them ask me my perspective on my art and for them to offer their perspective on my art and for us to have this like artist conversation. Just a really cool opportunity that I think probably a lot of people who make music don't get. And to people similarly to that, I've had a couple other instances, just not as balls to the wall crazy, where someone also was courageous enough to randomly like approach some person that they like know vaguely or don't know at all and just goes to their school or something and be like, can we please talk about art? Like, that's really cool and does take a lot of courage. And I wish more people would do that, and I think I should be doing that more. So I was very inspired by that. I also said artists like one of my best friends, Ava, Malone and Davis and Riley and Griffin, who have contributed to my music and who have helped me execute a further vision beyond, you know, usually what my like instrumental capabilities are, or people more experienced and more in touch with their creativity than me who have pointed me in the right direction. Artists and mentors whose praise I really value, some of those people also fall into that, but especially people older than me or people doing things similar to how I want to be doing them, who have good advice for me and who are willing to take me under their wing a little bit. Some of my teachers from high school, you know, Miss Weiner and Miss Campbell and Mr. Carmen, and organizations that have allowed me to showcase my creative talents, such as Rambler Magazine and Wave Zine and Music Production Union and KZSC Santa Cruz and Psychotropic and Haloscope and Top Magazine and Muses and Sound Sensations. I've been in a lot of really great creative organizations that have, to all different extents, just let me do whatever the fuck I want and really supported my creativity and my ambition. In the context of this week's chapter being safety, I think remembering how many people are on my side stops me from getting into that doomer mindset of like, it's just me and my music against the world, and you know, nobody is gonna support me the way that I support myself. And I think to a certain extent, yeah, I am gonna have to be my own biggest fan, and I can't rely on the external validation of these other people to tell myself that I'm good. But I also can't pretend what they're saying doesn't matter to me and isn't propelling me in the right direction. It absolutely is, and I'm very grateful for it. I also started writing down a lot of the things that I'm grateful for, like very specific snapshots of gratitude throughout my life. Thank you, log. I said the purple flowers very vivid on the street, a hummingbird outside Five Guys, drinking orange spiced tea and listening to jazz on a rainy night at KZSC, having legs to run around on, dark green walls covered in oil paintings of fish, waking up today and it is so bright and blue and also stormy and cloudy, the best. And the cherry blossoms are starting. They're blooming on my campus, like cherry blossom season is beginning. I also started writing down a compliment log that I immediately forgot to update, in true fashion of why I started the compliment log. I completely forget how nice people are to me and what they say, I thought that it would actually really round me out a lot better if I was able to hold on to some of the really nice things that I've been hearing about my music, but also just about me and whatnot. And there's a lot of great people who say a lot of really great things to me, and so I would like to remember that. I guess now we're gonna take a look at next week, recovering a sense of identity. Week 2. This week addresses self-definition as a major component of creative recovery. You may find yourself drawing new boundaries and staking out new territories as your personal needs, desires, and interests announce themselves. The essay and tools are aimed at moving you into your personal identity, a self-defined you. Going Sane is the name of the first chapter. And I think I would like to use the artist way in a similar way. I would like to really develop my artistry and feel confident in it in a way where I don't need to be constantly like seeking validation or trying to defend myself against somebody that I perceive might, like hasn't even yet, but might criticize me or not get it, not get the vision. I'm really hoping that by doing the artist way this time, I will gain some confidence and some security in myself as an artist, and that I will also help to unrepress some of the stuff that I've had repressed that I think is blocking my creative flow. I'm hoping that it will make me more imaginative and help me solve some of my problems with a little bit more ease by maybe looking at them more creatively and not being so stuck in the same path. I'm hoping that it will inspire me and help me listen to my creative impulses more. I'm hoping that it will help me surmount my censor. Yeah. And I'm very excited to see where it leads me. And I'm going to keep doing updates like this. Hopefully they won't be 45 minutes in the future. But I mean, I don't plan what I'm saying before this, so I'll let it in.